What happens when you're cut off from all outside stimulation, including sound, sight, even gravity? Well, flotation therapy, also known as sensory deprivation, isn't exactly new, but is making a comeback in health and wellness space. And it's an effective method to improve mental and emotional balance, as well as many other things. Our guest today, a lifelong martial artist and performance coach, was on the search for finding the most effective recovery therapy and found it by floating. This is the story of float therapy with Maxwell Casa. Max, great to have you on.
Pleasure to be here, brother. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, you're a mixed martial artist. I'm a big MMA fan. I know others like Joe Rogan have talked about floating, but tell me how you got into this idea and how you discovered float therapy to benefit you.
Definitely, man. Yeah, it definitely all started with, even before I got into the martial arts, really at birth, because I was diagnosed with a degenerative neuromuscular disease called Charcot-Marie-Tooth, or CMT for short. So I was diagnosed with that at birth. And really, my parents started to see me struggle and suffer in different ways. And eventually started looking for different modalities. And they stumbled upon the martial arts and ended up enrolling me at a young age of 4 years old.
Wow.
And yeah, just as a parent, I think that was one of the best things they could have done for me, given the circumstances I was going through at that time. Because one, I loved it, but and it really started to help with my muscle strength, my balance and coordination, a lot of the things I was struggling with the neuromuscular disease. But as I got older, started teaching and competing in the martial arts more. I was constantly looking for ways to optimize my mind and body and get that next 1%, I guess you could say. And so I started trying out different high-end Western world technologies and different South American shamanic brews and Eastern medicines and just about everything in between. And then when I had my first float, something really resonated deep inside, because for me, it was one of the first forms of therapy that I had experienced that intimately linked together the physical and mental recovery with the spiritual aspect as well, which is something I was craving at that point in my life. So yeah, man, I started floating more and more after that and diving into the research on how it was helping so many people. And then ultimately ended up starting my company, Max Vitality, where we now distribute our float tanks and our bath salts and do all the fun stuff, man. So
awesome. Yeah. I want to get into the company and into the bath salts. Like we kind of talked a little bit before this. I'm super excited about that because I'm big into bath salts and trying to find the best, always high quality. That determines results. But you mentioned the research, the studies. Like what are the benefits here for floating and kind of sensory deprivation?
Yeah. So really, there's there's so many benefits, but really there's three main pillars of benefits that I like to sum it up with. So really there's all the benefits we're getting from the zero gravity environment, right? Because you're inside this tank. A lot of people don't recognize, like if people are listening to this and they're not aware of what floating is, I can give them a quick breakdown.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. So floating, it's really a powerful form of therapy that involves getting in usually a big egg-shaped hot tub type tank, oftentimes a lid over a top. But if anyone, we also offer like totally open float tanks as well, which look more like a small swim spa or a hot tub. It's totally open, great for anxious and claustrophobic people. But regardless of the style, inside this tank, there's 10 inches of water. But these 10 inches of water are extremely super saturated with over 1,000 pounds of therapeutic grade magnesium salts. Commonly Epsom salts, and benefits for Epsom salts alone have been well known and well documented for hundreds of years. I know you're a big bath guy, big Epsom salt guy, which is great.
Indeed.
So, dude, you can imagine this is not a couple pounds of Epsom salt in the bathtub at the end of the night. We're talking about 1,000 pounds of this salt in a giant tub. So this creates an extremely buoyant saltwater solution. So buoyant that we could literally take a bowling ball, put it in the water, and it would easily float to the top like a cork.
Wow.
Right? So it enables effortless floating. But it isn't just all the salt that's so healing. When you're in this tank, it's also totally void of all external sensory stimulation coming into the brain altogether. So you're in this tank, there's no light, not even a single photon of light. There's no sound, there's no smells, there's no taste, there's no movement, there's no speech inside this tank. And there isn't even a sensation of touch because the saltwater solution and the air inside the chamber is precisely heated and kept at a constant 94.5 degrees Fahrenheit, which is skin receptor neutral. So your brain oftentimes when you're in there starts to lose sensation and awareness of where your body ends and where the water begins, which can lead to profound spiritual and even life-changing experiences. But ultimately floating is easy as getting inside the tank, laying back and floating and reaping all the beautiful benefits it has to offer.
Yeah, I've experienced it. I talked to you a little bit about this as well. I really enjoyed it. I think the first time you do a float, like my whole time, about an hour, was just kind of getting used to this feeling. Like, you're in your head. You're like, am I touching the side? Am I doing this? Like, did I just splash? Am I under what? Like you're your mind starts to go and you're just like, calm down. I meditate and everything, but when you're in a totally different environment than you're used to, you think your mind is the only thing on, your skin isn't touched. You don't feel, you're floating kind of, you don't see, you don't hear, you don't sense. So the mind starts to go rampant. Second time was able to calm it down, understood a little bit and went deeper, had a wonderful meditation and kind of, a different experience altogether. And each time after that, I think it's a growth pattern in the float itself. But I've talked to people that I've tried it once or twice, like not for me. And I referenced this with you previously that, in the 1950s or so, research started coming out about sensory deprivation that was negative. McGill University had one where people went into psychosis, became incredibly anxious. Now, I doubt it was really made in a pod or in the type of things we're talking about with float tanks, and more so maybe even on the torture realm of things. But for those people out there, and others, they're anxious. They're always in their heads. And let's be honest, that's a lot of the population these days. Is floating good for them? And what type of advice would you have for those that are saying, listen, I tried it. I kind of panicked a little bit. I was in my head too much. It wasn't for me.
Totally. Yeah, I think there's a few main points hit there. Naturally, sensory deprivation in general, like if we Google it, if we Google sensory deprivation, we may get some wild stuff that is a little bit different than float therapy. Float therapy is technically a form of sensory deprivation. Although we try to, as we try to market our industry, try to steer clear of the sensory deprivation aspect and get pulled into that, because sensory deprivation, prolonged sensory deprivation, where the client or the recipient didn't have any control over when they were going to get out, whether they were going into it or not, or any of the circumstances that are in there, maybe not even sure if something's going to pop out at them or whatever's going on in there, is a totally different experience. A lot of times filled with a lot more fear. And when someone goes into one of these pods, one of these open float tanks, which has no lid over the top at all, you're just in this room that is silent, that is dark, that you opted to go into, and you can freely get out of at any point in time if you want during that session. So I think that's a big thing. So it's just important for people to remember, you're not locked in there. If you want, like our Vitality pods, we got like a light button right inside the tank. They want to press it on, and maybe the first session, they're not ready for the silent darkness. That's cool. They can go in and they can soak up the benefits of the red light therapy or some of the other chromotherapy benefits we have in there. So if you're in there, you're in the light, whether you're in there, you plug your phone into the aux cord in the back of the tank and you're listening to your favorite song or powerful frequencies or guided meditations or hypnosis tracks, been really effective inside the tank as well. I'm sure we can get into that more. But yeah, also just remembering if you want to get out of that tank at any time, you totally can. Some people go in for the first session, they pop in for 5 minutes and say, hey, I had my dose. I got to feel it. Then next time they go in and they're in for 20, they build up from there. On the other side, maybe someone stays in for that whole 60-minute session, but like you said, the mind was overactive. They didn't have the tools or the tactics to be able to quiet the mind or bring their mind to this place of one-pointedness, which is a big piece of my philosophy here. Something that helps make the float session a lot more enjoyable and impactful, But then what we see is maybe it takes them for their first session, maybe it takes 40 minutes for them to drop in to that deep relaxation. They get 20 minutes of the deep parasympathetic benefits, but then they go in for their second float session and they're able to relax in 15 minutes, because their mind's a little less hyperactive. It's been in that environment before. It knows it's totally safe. And then by the third session, they're able to drop into that in 5-6 minutes. You'll drop into that deep relaxation. And then as we make this more of a practice, people are able to drop into that relaxation. Once they felt it, they felt the switch in consciousness, what they have to do internally, how they can take some control and control over their nervous system and their body and their mind. Then they can start to drop into that more instantaneously with practice,
Yeah. So you're basically saying, like, advice wise for people that are nervous and anxious and want to try floating is kind of taper in and do it at your own level. You don't have to throw yourself into 60 minutes of complete silence, just sitting there with your thoughts, basically, kind of
Totally.
eating away at you.
Totally.
But still, for people that, are of the anxious level, even a few minutes can be a lot. What are your best tips for really kind of gaining hold of your mind when all you have is your mind? Meaning most anxious people right now find solace in social media as a distraction, find solace in Netflix to zone out of their overactive mind, find solace in drugs and other things. So, here you kind of don't have that. You're stuck with your mind, and that's really it. And that's a scary thought for some. So what's your kind of best advice as you go into a float session for those overthinkers?
Yeah, great question, man. I feel for me, we go into there, like we said, a lot of times we are unconsciously distracting ourselves to try to maybe escape our thoughts or quiet our thoughts or not hear them as clearly. But there's Mahatma Gandhi had a beautiful quote. Say the mind is a beautiful servant, but horrible master, right? I feel a lot of people, their mind is running the show up top, and many people haven't had the experience, or they haven't developed the tools to help them realize or come to the deep realization that deep inside we exist beyond our body and beyond our mind. But a lot of times people become so identified with their body and with their mind that every thought that comes up, they're so identified with, like imagine someone with ADHD. I work with a lot of clients with ADHD, for example. I was with one the other day, and he was sitting there, we were having a conversation, but he was so identified with his mind that every thought that came into his awareness got ripped over to. So whatever he's thinking about, the candy shop over here, or what is my mom doing? And then his awareness is over here. Or what am I got to do later? And his awareness is over here. He's at the mercy of his thoughts, and his mind is being his master. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So as we can learn to cultivate an awareness behind our thoughts and just watch our thoughts without being as identified with them, it could be a much more pleasant, peaceful experience because we're not at the mercy of those thoughts. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
A technique we'll sometimes do is, so really the philosophy is our mind, we just have to recognize our mind for what it is. It's a entity that is just thinking, That's its job. It's its function. Our minds think. It's what it does. So if I'm going to sit here and I'm going to try to meditate, a lot of people go into the float experiences like, I'm just thinking so much, I can't stop my mind from thinking. But that isn't the point. We're not supposed to be, most people aren't able to, nor even should this be the goal, get your mind to stop thinking altogether.
Yeah.
So people are sitting there in meditation and they're trying to stop their mind from thinking any thoughts at all. But really, we just have to recognize our mind is going to think, it's what it does.
Always.
So a little practice we can do is we can feed our mind instead of trying to shut it off altogether, which may be a stressful experience. If we can just feed our mind one predominant thought, we ask our mind, hey mind, can you just think about this one thought and keep your awareness here for even just 3 minutes, eventually the entirety of the whole float session, and eventually outside the float session as well. We give our mind a task. Now it's our servant. We give it our task to keep its awareness on this one predominant thought and don't drift away from it. And now maybe we say, hey, mind, all I want you to think about is when I breathe in, all I want you to say is breathing in. Breathing in. As I breathe out, my mind just says breathing out. As I breathe in, breathing out, it just says breathing out. And if I can keep my awareness there and start bringing my mind to this place of one pointedness, now what I can start to do is now whenever another thought comes into my awareness and it thinks about what am I going to do later? What's this person thinking, etc. Any thought that comes in besides breathing in or breathing out, I can more easily notice, and anything other than the task, I can just let it go. We can keep our awareness back on that. We just let it go, breathing in, breathing out. Whenever another thought comes up, we just allow it, let it go, don't identify with it, bring it back to the task. And you start fine-tuning the awareness of our mind and start to work with it and cultivate a more harmonious relationship with it.
Do you find that flotation therapy helps others meditate more? Because I know a lot of people, again, you go back to, we all have the monkey mind going wild these days. It's our level of focus is like insane. It's not even like 15 seconds. You have 5 seconds to get someone's attention or they're out. And people try the guided meditation, of course, the apps are big and everything, but still people have trouble with that. Do you find that implementing, like you said, with people with ADHD and others, implementing the float tank within that has helped them to calm their mind in a catalyzed way, meaning, as opposed to just doing meditating every single day?
100%, man. Yeah, I think float therapy is, dude, it's like you're going into this tank that is kind of like a cheat to meditation in a way, because it's cutting out all that external sensory stimulation for you. You don't have to focus on not getting distracted by the thoughts about the dog barking or whatever it is, because there's no dog barking. There's no light, there's no sound, there's none of it. So it's blocking out a lot of our senses already, and we start to bring our awareness inward, start to quiet the mind, open the heart, and go in. So yeah, my experience has been that it's really accelerated my meditation practice, and yeah, man, I feel a lot of others have been noticing the same thing.
Tell us about the pod, because I've seen different ones. I don't know too much about the industry as a whole. I don't know if there's a ton of options. Of course, there are kind of spa places now popping up that may have pods or a little booth that you go in and experience this in. Tell us about your pod, and then tell us how it's different maybe from others out there.
Totally. Yeah. So the pods, I don't know where you had floated in. Was yours more of a, what style yours was?
I've done a few different ones. Like years ago, it was not a larger pod, but like, a regular wide pod, kind of just shut down, nothing else to it in a sense. A light came on when you're done. That's it. I've also done ones, like you said, I guess are larger ones. You go into the suite, get undressed, and it's like a large door and it kind of closes. You got 6 to 8 feet kind of around you. And you try to just like float around, and it's like a little pool, like kiddie pool sort of thing.
Totally.
So yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed them, but I don't know enough about the differences of them, what type of even, salts they were using. I just want to experience and kind of go in as a guinea pig.
Totally, man. Yeah, no, that's cool. Yeah, there's a bunch of different styles. Like we said, we got more egg-shaped pods, which are one of the main styles we deal with. We also offer totally open float pools, which are cool. it's cool to see how the industry's evolved, dude. Because like you said, back in the 50s and 60s, the tanks were actually vertical. A lot of the tanks,
Oh, really?
dude. This like before they even had salt in the tanks, because they were trying to figure out like how do we get people in a
Yeah.
silent, dark place. So to talk about the early studies on sensory deprivation, floating definitely were totally different than the experience today. So you'd get in from the top in one of these tanks, and you would actually go in with like an astronaut helmet bubble, and you would go into the water. It wasn't even salt water back then. You just lay in there and you would float and be breathing in this bubble. So
Very
that was even
different.
that was even less claustrophobic friendly.
Yeah. No, I'd bug out.
You know? Yeah, no doubt. So now, like we said, they're super spacious. Like the pods, for example, they're larger than standard sized car or something like that. So you're inside this tank, you're laying in it. It's spacious all around you. Again, they got the 10 inches of water. And then we also have the totally open, which are, as we said, totally open. Where those are still equally sensory deprivation, but now just the entire room is sensory deprived. Versus the pods, just inside the tank is sensory deprived. It could be put in a standard room of your house or your garage or a wellness center or something like that. So that blocks out the light and the sound for you. Versus the open flow pool would just be put in a silent, dark room. Then it has a heater on the ceiling that kind of heats the air between the floater's belly and the ceiling to feel that. But yeah, I mean, our tanks are unique in a few different ways. I mean, one, the filtration system, let's put a lot of energy into that, trying to keep things as clean and spot on as possible, I guess you could say. So after each floater, when every floater exits the tank, the owner of the float tank just clicks a button on their phone, because it hooks up to a smartphone. They click it, and then the filtration system kicks on after each floater. It will filter all the salt water through the ozone purification, through the UV purification, through the micron filter, and through the hair traps, and spit it back into the tank. And then usually for the tanks, we just use a chemical disinfectant like hydrogen peroxide to shock dose it once a week. But yeah, man. I mean, between that, our tanks are also totally EMF shielded and designed with biogeometry, which is
I love it. Dr. Kareem's work, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Biogeometry.
Yes, sir. Yeah, man.
Awesome.
So we love that. Yeah, man. And like we said, we also have the powerful underwater sound transducers built into the tank too, which actually transmit frequencies and the sounds directly into the saltwater solution.
Oh man. So you got different therapies going on. Because when you talk about just float, it's just, all right, just get the water temperature right, have enough salt in it, and make sure there's no light and sounds. That's what most go into, and just stop there, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But this idea of frequencies, right? So I just had someone on before and tried their new thing out. It's called the Amortal Chamber. It's all about like frequencies, red light on you, sound like, going through you, giving you Schumann waves, all these different things. And, because the future of medicine, I believe, is frequency. Everything is frequency. We know an energy. And so you say biogeometry, my eyes light up. Then you say frequency. I'm like, oh shit, that's even better. How did you incorporate that into float? Because again, from my understanding years ago, it was just make sure light doesn't get in sound. It's the right temperature and put enough salt in it. You're good.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there's a part of my heart that's just always been into the optimization side, coming from the biohacking background, the optimization, all the rest of it. So I would go into a float tank. I'd have a profound experience in the back of my head. I would notice some thoughts, be like, hey, we could dial this in, maybe there was a thought of worry about the EMF or whatever it was. Just wanted to make sure it's a pure environment. So over the years, we've just been going through, checking the boxes, and just optimizing the environment, like I'm a very sensitive meditator as well. So I'm in one of these tanks, maybe it's only impacting the mechanics of the mind by a fraction of a %, but it's still something I wanted to get up on. You know what I mean? So we can cut out the EMFs, make a biogeometry, and really harmonize the entire environment. Something that I started noticing found differences with. And yeah, it was really cool to see how that impacted the float experience, especially having years of floating under my belt and started making these shifts. And another big one was the salt, like you said.
That's what I want to get to, man, because salt is everything, man. Like that's life. Like Dr. James D. Nicolantonio, I had on a bunch like the salt fix, and it's all about the quality of the salts you put, but you also absorb it and what you put in it. And so many people know about Epsom salt baths, right? And just buy it from their local whatever's cheaper, the cheapest bag they just jump in there. My muscles feel better, but I read about your salt and I was like, oh man, I got to hear more about this. He talked about like alchemically alive magnesium bath blend from Vitality. So I was like, okay, I want to know about that. We could do a whole one just on that, but no. So tell me about the salts.
Yeah. So really, as I was floating, like we said, coming from more so from the biohacking background, the mineral optimization background, I had known obviously Epsom salts were great. I was using it, needed it for my martial arts career, I guess you could say, the soaks and everything like that.
Yep.
But for anyone listening, Epsom salt has a sneaky cousin, magnesium chloride. And magnesium chloride is another kind of salt, very magnesium rich salt. Magnesium was really a mineral I was after because all the thousands of benefits in the mind and body. So I got really deep into magnesium and how we could optimize our magnesium levels. And while I was down that rabbit hole, I discovered magnesium chloride and how magnesium chloride has over 230% more magnesium than Epsom salt. So I was taking Epsom salt baths. I was floating in Epsom salt, 1,000 pounds of it. And I was like, hey, if we can make this better and we can soak in magnesium chloride, which not only does it have way more magnesium than Epsom salt, nearly 2.5 times more, but it's also way better absorbed through the skin. So there's several studies showing, demonstrating transdermal magnesium absorption via magnesium chloride. But Epsom salt, although there's a lot of anecdotal evidence, a lot of people are feeling better, there's only really one study that's pointing to its transdermal absorption. It was kind of iffy. So we started filling our float tanks with magnesium chloride, and that was kind of the start of it, man. And after that float sesh, I just noticed even way deeper relaxation, anti-stress benefits, sleeping better at night. And again, after training, the recovery was through the roof. So I started noticing like a massive jump when I started using the magnesium chloride in the float tank. And then started getting into magnesium's powerful cofactors. So magnesium has 3 powerful cofactors. Vitamin B6, which helps get the magnesium deeper into the cell. Bicarbonate, which helps get the magnesium deeper into the mitochondria. And then boron, which helps our body and our cells actually hold on to the magnesium longer. So if anyone at home, they're hip on magnesium, they want to up their mag levels, oral mag supplements, good tool. And so are magnesium rich foods. But unfortunately, a lot of our soils have been kind of depleted of magnesium, as I'm sure you know, from factory farming and NPK fertilizer, et cetera. And a lot of the oral mag supplements, although they're a great tool, a lot of them are taking 9 to 12 months to start to move the dial on our red blood cell magnesium levels in the body. So this is where transdermal mag comes in. So if someone's looking to get the benefits of magnesium that's absorbed through the skin, it's some really cool studies, dude, and you can actually see we've captured in a laboratory now, magnesium ions, which in the picture look like a blue dot, just going over to the hair follicles, getting magnetically pulled over to the hair follicles and getting shuttled down through the hair follicle directly into the bloodstream.
Oh, wow.
So it's really, really powerful. And transdermal magnesium is great. We start stacking it with the cofactors. It's like next level, dude. Yeah.
We think of our skin only as this protective layer that doesn't allow anything in, when in reality, it is this kind of, interchanging always. Things go out, in, we sweat and release things and toxins and other things. And we take in so much, the good and the bad, meaning magnesium, good. Fluoride, chlorine, not so good. And I know you talked about that also. There's a blend that contains enzymes that neutralize the chemicals in tap water, right? How'd you get to that?
But it's funny, like yeah, it's really the inner biohacker is showing
Yeah.
the background there. Yeah, there's a form of vitamin C has been shown to be really effective. And so even before, like for example, I got a 7-year-old stepdaughter. We go to the water park or something like that. Like we have a mineral pool at our pad, so we have a pool that's off of the chlorine, and instead of chlorine or bromine or anything like that, we use a mix of ozone and UV and hydrogen peroxide and minerals like magnesium and the vitality salts we talked about to sterilize the water and soak up more of the benefits. But we go to the water park or the neighbor's pool or something like that. There's toxins in there. We don't want to sweat them too much and give them too much power. But at the same time, if there's anything we can do, one of the things I learned is we started taking just every time before we go to the water park or anything like that. It's kind of just like a core value of ours. We just make sure we eat an orange before going into the pool, because the vitamin C in that orange helps off gas and neutralize a lot of harmful chemicals that are in the water, particularly chlorine and fluoride.
Yeah.
So what we started to do is and vitamin C is something we use in the float tanks as well for this purpose, but we blended that into the vitality salts blend along with the cofactors, along with the purest magnesium chloride. So when you're in there, you pour this stuff in, you just give it a minute, it will neutralize any harmful chemicals. Like if you're bathing in tap water or foot soaking in tap water or anything like that, you'll neutralize it. You'll see it off gas. You'll smell it off gas, and you pop in and soak in vitality, man.
Amazing. And it's really unfortunate because, we've kind of created toxic pools and we shower in toxic things and don't even know it. And, I have this discussion a lot with people. It's like, yeah, but you're taking in so little of that, but it's accumulation. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's the tap water you drink, the things that are in the air right now, the VOCs from the flame retardant, like rug you're have right now, like you're sitting on, the EMFs all around us right now, right? That's where it's like, no, I understand your case. That alone, one bath will not suddenly give you illness, right?
Yeah,
because the fluoride. But over time, over the years, and again, look at the data. Like we're sicker and sicker. Like we got to turn it around somehow. And I love that you're addressing some of that within this as well. Now, talk about your MVP protocol, because I want to learn a little bit about that also and become an MVP myself. So,
sure. Yes, sir. Yeah, I mean, really, it's evolved even this past year, but really it's been a protocol that I developed to help people optimize their mineral levels for one. Because mineral levels is what we were seeing was being really at the root cause of a lot of imbalance and disease in the body and the mind. Because a lot of people don't recognize our mineral levels are literally the foundation or the backbone for our so many enzymes and biochemicals and our hormones and our metabolism and our physical body and our mental emotional health. You know what I mean? So, and a lot of these diseases, we start to see things like magnesium deficiency or copper deficiency, etc. So we can start to help people really optimize their mineral levels, and then our body and our mind has these minerals to be able to do what it needs to do. It's create new hormones, whether it's defend against certain things or de-stress better or sleep better at night, whatever it is. It had the ammunition to be able to do just that. So really it's a protocol we developed to help people optimize their mineral levels. And then it's just evolved because just sticking to my truth the best that I can in all transparency and with my practices of floating and deep meditation. And my partner and I also own a entheogenic plant medicine church where we host many plant medicine ceremonies. We travel around doing that. And we just feel that although the minerals are right there at the underlying level of a lot of the disease. We took our best shot with the minerals. There is still, we feel there are things that are a little bit more subtle than that we can start to deal with, with the energy body, with the mental emotional body that is really having such a large impact on the physical body as we see. It really intertwines it all really nicely. All those things we've learned from the ceremonies, all the things we've learned from our years of biohacking and mineral optimization, and really tying it together really nicely, dude. So I think it's a really great mix to help people bring their mind and body into harmony. And ultimately, what we start to see as a result is a lot less stress, a lot less disease, and a lot less suffering, which is a really, really large one as well.
Of course. No, I love that synergistic and holistic approach to things, and also that focus on minerals, right? Because it is such a building block that we forget. We are so depleted in most of the things that we're doing today, whether it's the pharmaceutical drugs we're taking or the way we're eating, and the toxins out there are depleting us even more. And so, definitely in our practice, in our clinic, we see that, where people come in and they have chronic disease. And one of the first things we want to do is check their minerals and put them on high quality minerals. And oftentimes like, what's a mineral? Who cares, right? People just give me the big drug, or the IV or something powerful.
100%.
But without minerals, none of that matters.
100%.
So really happy to hear that, and really excited. I'm going to try out the bath salts of yours, the vitality salts there. Where can people learn more, purchase this stuff, get into what you're doing?
Definitely, man. Yeah. So if they pop on maxvitality.co, .co, and you'll see on there, we got our float tanks. We got a bunch of different styles, bunch of different sizes. We have smaller ones that are great for residential use, or we have even tanks that are large enough for 2 people to float at the same time.
Oh, nice.
Couples
float therapy, huh?
Yes, sir. That's it.
Awesome.
The wave, man. Yes, we got it all. Open, closed, whatever you want. And then you all see our vitality salts on there too, which is again, we got magnesium chloride. So anyone here that's doing Epsom salt, we encourage you at least to try out magnesium chloride. Because again, 230% more magnesium than Epsom salt. And then if we're really serious about it, we introduce the cofactors, which the vitality salts blend has. So there's the cofactors. It's blasted with powerful heart opening, grounding, and magnesium frequencies. Has the vitamin C in there, which will neutralize any harmful toxins in the water we're using. And yeah, man, so we got the tanks, we got the salt, we got our some free ebooks on there and some paid ones as well. Different things, whether people are looking to optimize their mineral levels, whether people are looking to learn to deepen their relationship with the mind and body and spirit, and go down paths to higher states of consciousness. We can help facilitate that as well. Yeah, man. Then on Instagram at Max Casa, MAXXCASA. That's some fun stuff going on over there. Keep it fun, keep it light, keep it informative. And yeah, I mean, I guess I was planting the seed I kind of did about the entheogenic plant medicine church. We host that. So if anyone's interested in learning more about that, or eventually maybe even sitting at some point, feel free to let us know and get you some more info and answer any cues you got. That's another form of therapy. Float therapy and the plant medicines are really 2 modalities that have really helped me tap into these higher states of consciousness. And that's why I feel so passionately about it. What we're doing between church and the business and bringing it all together, man. So yeah, it's good fun.
I love it. Good work, Max. I definitely am going to jump on and pick up some salts there and try them out, let people know about that. But keep up the good work, man. Really appreciate everything you're doing. Really appreciate this opportunity to get your story out.
I appreciate you, brother. Yeah, it's a pleasure to be connected. And we'll keep in touch, brother. We'll get you some salts.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that. As you heard here today, float therapy provides an awesome and powerful self-care remedy that can benefit your body, mind, and spirit, and offers guest solutions that you can use right in your home, which is the way you want to do it. Check out maxvitality.co for more information. And until next time, continue writing your own healing story.